Welcome back to Over the Edge podcast. This week, we have such an incredible guest. This is the week where you want to listen because you want to make more money or you want to manage the money that you are making. Maybe you feel lost around money. If you're creative, if you're self-employed, whatever you're doing, if you want to feel better about what you're doing with your money or how to make more money with your money, whatever that looks like, this is the episode that you want to sit down and take notes on this week. I'm so excited for you to meet my guest this week. Elizabeth Michelle is a financial coach focused on helping women love their relationship with money and grow their wealth. She truly believes that financial independence is an enabler for living a life on your terms, realizing your dreams, and creating a more secure and abundant future. She is passionate about helping women to feel empowered to talk about money and pursue and ask for what they deserve, feel less stressed about money, and be more confident managing their money in a way that supports their goals and lifestyle. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am so excited to talk about money today because, especially for creatives, this can be such an overwhelming topic. I hear a lot from creatives and I hear a variety of things. So a lot of people, whether they're starting out or they've been doing it for 10 years, they're still kind of stuck in like an introduction to money in terms of like, what accounts do I set up? How do I pay myself? And then of course, once you have money, what do you do with it? So I want to talk about all of it today. But tell us a little bit about like what you specialize in and what drew you to money in the first place, or coaching about money in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I specialize in working with women on all things finance. So managing their personal finances, helping them also improve their relationship with money. Because I know the way we grow up really influences our relationship with money and the thoughts and beliefs we have around that. So really helping them not only to reframe their beliefs, but take action so that they can teach themselves and trust themselves that they're good with money, that they can manage it effectively. And then helping them use those tools and use money as a tool to really build a life that they want. Um, I've always been a numbers person and loved finance and stuff. I even took a minor in finance in college because I actually liked that part. I didn't love my major in college, which was engineering. Yeah, and I grew up not having much and seeing a lot of money and security in my personal life, also some manipulation and control around money. And I think that did a couple things. It served me well because I had so much motivation to learn about money myself so that I could be always independent. Um, and it also created some fear for me in the beginning that I also had to work through about feeling like I was not going to ever have enough or that I was going to lose what I had. So I think those things coupled together really motivated me to educate myself. I made a lot of mistakes. I wish I had had a great education about money earlier. But going through that in parallel to building a career in corporate, I just came to realize that this is something that I enjoy. I help my friends and family with just naturally. And I had been thinking about switching careers for a while because I wasn't happy in what I was doing before. Fast forward, I ended up working with a career coach, kind of fell on hey, I could actually do this money coaching thing. Started building that. I got laid off from my last role, and I really took it as a blessing and a sign to just go all in with my business, and focus on that. And one of the things I experienced with my layoff is financially, I was in a good place where I didn't have to jump and get the next role or figure I wasn't really worried about, oh my God, how I'm gonna pay my expenses because I had already set up myself so that I was okay. So I was able to take the space to absorb that change, figure out what I wanted to do next. And I really want to help women have that sense of security, so that whatever happens in life, they feel like they have choices and they can really make decisions based on what makes them feel happy and what's aligned with them. And I'm just so passionate about getting more money in the hands of women because I think we can do so much amazing things with money.
I love that. And I want to go to there are two things that really strike me from what you're talking about. And the first one is you kind of touched on the idea of making mistakes with money. And I know that is something that freaks me out. Like anytime I think about, well, what do I do with this money? I booked a new job. I put a portion of it toward taxes. Is if there's any left over, I just want to put it in savings and be as safe as possible with it. Everything else like freaks me out. Like, what do you do with the market? What do you do with anything else? So, can you talk a little bit about money mistakes, recovering from money mistakes? Is there really any do people the fear that gets built around that, is that really fear that we should be listening to, or are the mistakes like recoverable? How should we start thinking about money and mistakes and maybe not mistakes?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and I have like so many thoughts on it. The one thing I think about anything, there's always risk around anything. And I think the one thing with money is education and getting support so that you're taking educated risks, right?
Mm.
Um, and just getting started, because anything you do, like a job, starting a new like fitness program, any moving, any of those life things come with some level of risk or uncertainty, but like you never know until you start, and it's kind of trial and error. Um, I do think that money mistakes are recoverable. It depends on how big they are. It's just a matter of like time to recover from those. And as far as listening to our fears, I mean, I think that's such an interesting thing about the brain, because the brain is always trying to help us survive. That's the biggest motivation, right? So anytime we're having those fears or beliefs, it's really the brain just like trying to make sure that we're surviving and in our comfort zone. I think the biggest thing around that is just figuring out how to question those fears and then work with them. So maybe it's that fear is really like a sign to say, okay, like, why do I feel like this? Maybe there's some evidence out there in the world or in my life that is contradictory to this fear. And how do I use that to my advantage to maybe like get some more education or ask somebody for help? So really using that as a tool to help you move forward versus like keeping you from taking that next step.
How do you know the difference between I'm having a fear and it's time to work through it in my head through mindset work versus I should be cautious with this decision, or it's like a legitimate, like I should be moving slowly here, or I should question this or this or that? How do you know the difference between those two things?
I think a big difference is the information you have in each situation. So if you just have a fear, but you haven't really investigated it, and I'll give you an example. Like say you want to make a new investment because somebody like said it's, oh my God, it's amazing, and like you're gonna make so much money with this. And you're like, I don't think so because I'm gonna lose all my money. But you haven't really done the research or taken any action to like understand it. I think that's a situation where you say, okay, like, why do I have this fear, and how can I make myself more comfortable to decide if it's something I want to move forward with or if it's not? Versus if you look into that investment and maybe you find out, I don't know, this just doesn't sound like it sounds right for me. It sounds like too good to be true, or it's get rich, get quick, or you've done some more reading on it and you've seen like maybe people haven't been as successful, or it's like it could be very lucrative, but it's also very high risk and it doesn't necessarily align with the goals you have right now. Then I would say that's something to listen to, because now you have the data behind it, and you can then decide if it's really aligned with what you're trying to build in your own life.
Mm. So okay, so let's say you're talking to somebody who's self-employed, right? You're somebody who's like a creative full-time, whether that's like a photographer or website designer, or somebody has like a cool boutique, apparel boutique, stuff like that. When you're talking to somebody who's self-employed, in what ways do you like What advice do you give people who are self-employed? Because it feels so different. Like when you're in a 9 to 5, you know you're supposed to put money into your 401k, and things feel a little more clear cut. But when you're working for yourself, everything feels overwhelming and confusing. How do you save for retirement? What is the best advice that you give to people who are working for themselves?
The biggest thing is don't do it alone. Don't feel like you have to do it alone. Have a team around you or somebody that can help you. Even if it's just to kind of talk about where your thoughts are at, or if you want to figure out like where do I start first as far as managing my money, don't feel like you have to do it alone. Second of all, I still think even if I think there's this illusion that a W-2 versus working on your own, like a W-2 somehow is more secure. And I'm an example that it's not, because I've built a very long career and had a very good network in my old career and never thought I would get laid off, and it happened. So I honestly think there's an opportunity there as an entrepreneur to kind of reframe that and say, like, maybe it's actually safer to bet on yourself because you have control over how much you make and the things that you invest in. You're not necessarily reliant on somebody else and like how they decide to manage their business for your income. That being said, I think it's important to understand like how your business is, what your income is. I think it's still important to like have an emergency savings, but maybe how much you save is a little different because you're an entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is maybe because your income is not the same every month, maybe you're like putting away 6 to 12 months of expenses in a high yield savings account. You can still save for retirement, but there are just different retirement vehicles that you can check out as an entrepreneur versus like a 401k that's employer sponsored. So a lot of like the fundamentals can be the same for your personal finances. It's just the way you're kind of envisioning and what your goals are that are different.
When do you recommend? Okay, so if somebody is graduating college and going right into self-employment, how do you tell them to like set themselves up for success? Do you say start saving for retirement right now? Or what kind of vehicles do you recommend? Or what do you recommend to somebody who's like just out of college, gonna work for themselves, and is like just learning all of this stuff about finances?
Yeah, so I'd say the first thing is like set up your budget and pay yourself first. And what I mean by that is like, okay, I'm getting out of college, maybe I have my first job. So now let's take a look at like, what do I expect to be my income? And then what are my expenses that I'm going through? And I would say always live under what you're making so you have some left over to contribute to things like savings and retirement. So I always recommend, especially when you're younger, to live below your means as much as possible. And yes, start investing and saving for retirement early, because the biggest thing you have going for you is time in the market. Um, Man, I wish I had started investing when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, because I could have probably been a multimillionaire by now. Um, but so yeah, I would say definitely like know your budget, what your income is going to be, set up your budget so you're living under your means as much as that's possible. Um, don't go into debt that you don't need. Like don't sign up for a lot of credit cards or anything like that. I always say if you use credit cards, use them responsibly so you're paying the balance off every month. Um, and then if you do have like student loans, kind of implement that into your plan where you have a goal initially to try to get your debt paid off early. Make sure you're putting towards savings, and yeah, start investing for retirement and as much as possible, automate all that. So you're doing all that first, and then any leftover money you have, you already know that you're taking care of yourself, and you can enjoy that leftover money guilt-free.
I feel like the thing that works against us most in our 20s, like I remember being in my 20s and thinking, well, if my biggest advantage is I have time, then I have time. Like I can start this in 5 years, I can start this in 10 years, and then getting to my 30s and being like, oh crap, I really should have started this 10 years ago. Or how much would it have been if I'd started when I was 18? Things like that. How do you talk to people around the mindset of, well, I'm young, I have time, maybe I can put it off for a little bit?
Yeah, so I think it's just where do you envision yourself long term? Yeah, maybe we're young and we have time, and I had that mindset too, but it's also like, how do you take care of your future self? Do you envision like working forever, or is one of your dreams to maybe retire early, or maybe have the option that you don't necessarily have to work forever, but you can work when you want to? Maybe later on you want to travel more. Maybe you have a goal to buy a home. It's not necessarily about limiting yourself now. It's more about taking care of your future self so you can do some of those things that you want in your life. Um, and I mean, just think of like putting that money away and then like when you're 30, 40 and saying, you know what, I'm not really happy in my career or something. And now I've got like this financial plan and savings, or maybe I can do something else and I'm covered. And all you did is your younger self put $100 away a month or $50 away a month, and you grew that, and now you're like sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars or a million, depending on what age you are, and you've got that money already set aside that took really no effort. You didn't have to like pursue 8, 9, 10 side hustles or like buy a ton of real estate or anything like that. All you did is set some money aside that you invested in the market, and then now it's there and it's compounded for you.
And because the time will pass faster than it
Yes.
seems like it will. So let's actually talk about the putting away 50 or $100. Like it's so easy to think, well, it's just $50. Is it really going to do anything over time? Can you talk a little bit about those small things just monthly and consistently? Like what kind of power does that have over time?
Yeah, I love that question. So the thing about investing is you can start with a dollar, honestly. And when you invest in something, like if you have savings in a high yield savings account, or you're putting away money into your retirement or investing, you benefit from compound interest. So even if you were to put $50 a month and maybe you're making like, I don't want to say 5% interest, that's already like $2.50, I think, on that $50. But then now the next month is like $52.50. And then you make the 5% on that. So you can see over time how your balance in your account continues to grow, and then you earn interest on that, and you're not doing any work. So that $50 can grow to $100. And then if you start, and if that's all you're putting in, right? And if you say like maybe $50 the first year, then $100 the next year, and you keep increasing it, you're continuing to increase the balance and benefit off of compound interest. And you're not really doing anything but making sure you're investing regularly. Compound interest can be huge. I mean, you can put away, say, like over a couple of years, like you've only really invested $100,000, and that $100,000 could potentially grow to a million over 30, 40 years.
Wow. That's incredible. So okay, let's say you're older. You're in your
Mhm.
20s, and let's say you're in your 20s and like you did not you kind maybe you lightly invested, but you didn't really go all in, or you didn't do 50 to 100 consistently every month. Let's say you get to your midlife, which is generally accepted as like 35 and above. But
Mhm.
let's say you get to midlife and suddenly you're going like, oh, I didn't build up my retirement enough, or I've been a creative for 10 years, and when you're a creative, you're never really sure how much you can put away and how much you need to have on hand to like pay bills in case something else does not come in, that kind of thing. What would you say to creatives who are like, or self-employed people who are kind of in midlife and it's like, wow, did I do enough from retirement? What if I don't have enough? How do I pick up speed on that over the next 20 years that I have to do it? What does it look like at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's never too late. It's just, it might look a little different where you might have to put in more depending on what your goal is for retirement. Um, I think when you get to midlife too, you're also still trying to find ways to increase your income so that you can put away more. But even if you're 35, I mean, the retirement age right now is like 65. So you still have a good 30 years where you could invest. It's just you may end up having to put away more every month if you want to get to a certain goal versus if you had started in your 20s.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And one more point on that, I think it also depends on like what does retirement look like for you? I think we're seeing a lot of differences in how we plan for retirement. Traditionally, we always look at retirement as like, I'm going to retire at 65 and then like I'm not going to work. But I think a lot of us maybe would get bored not working or not doing anything. So maybe what your goal is I want to have money for retiring, but eventually, like for myself, I probably will do something. I probably will want to work at some point. But it's more about giving myself the freedom to say, like, at some point, I will have enough invested where I can work when I want to or how much I want to and
Mm.
still cover my expenses. That can look very different from somebody who just like wants to retire and like never work again. You might need less money put away if you're planning to work some at some point. So it's also kind of like thinking about what that really looks like for you and then saving towards that goal. So if you're like in midlife, that might mean you're not putting as much away as somebody who maybe like completely just wants to not work.
Well, so that was actually what my question was, is like, what should retirement look like if if you're planning appropriately for retirement, like what does retirement look like? What is there a specific like number goal that we should be aiming for? What does that look like these days?
Yeah, so one of the numbers I really like is there's this whole FIRE movement, which is like financial independence, retire early. And I think there's different flavors of that because for me, I think it's more of like financial independence and then live life the way I want to. Because like I said, I don't personally want to completely retire. And there are probably many listeners who maybe like still want to do the work that they love. So there are lots of great calculators online that you can just like Google, find your FIRE number, and essentially it's you figure out what your yearly expenses will be. So you can figure out like what are your normal expenses every month, find out what that looks like every year, and then you multiply that number by like 25. And the idea is that whatever number you get, once you reach that number, you can actually like live off 4% of that number and it will still continue to grow if it's in the market and accruing interest. And that number is different for everybody. It just really depends on what your goals are for retirement and what you think your expenses will be.
Excellent. Okay, good. Okay, so with all of that in mind, who who do you recommend to have on your financial team? Like obviously you want a financial coach. Who else do you want in place supporting you?
Yeah, so I think from the perspective of a business owner, it's really good to have a lawyer, which I think helps you like make sure your business is set up correctly, um, that you're like contracting and all that is in place because you want to make sure that that legal stuff is taken care of because that can affect your finances
Mhm.
if you don't set it up correctly. So I think having somebody that understands like your business from a legal perspective is good. Having a good tax professional that understands having a business and can help you plan for that, make sure that you're filing correctly, make sure you understand how to maximize your income so you're not paying a crazy amount of taxes. So having somebody that you can trust that way. And then it depends on outside of that, I think it just depends on what your goals are. There's a lot of different financial professional types. You can have people that are like they specialize in retirement planning and kind of help you like with the different retirement products out there and investing for retirement. But I think at least having like your legal person and your tax person initially to make sure you're set up correctly is really helpful. And then if you, depending on the nature of your business and if you don't like doing it yourself, somebody that's really good at bookkeeping so that you can make sure you're tracking all of your expenses and you've accounted for that.
Excellent. I just want to underline that for everybody because I deeply believe in the power of a team at any point in your business. Like having a lawyer, having a tax person, and if you can have a bookkeeper. I want to underline that because I think that because the last the point where you don't want to be looking for a team member is when you really, really need them, right? Like you don't want to just be looking for a lawyer in the moment that you really need a lawyer. You want to have somebody on your team already. And I feel like it's the same with a tax person and a bookkeeper. Like you don't want to be scrambling to get that team in place. What do you think about when you are putting a team or when you're thinking about putting a team in place? How do you decide who you want to work with? Like, are you looking for like, what questions are you asking? Like, how do you even start there?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I'm a big believer in like tapping into your network. And I'll give you like Paige referred me to a really great lawyer contact. So I think tapping into your network to figure out like who are they working with, who do they like. And then when you find those contacts, you want to ask them very specific questions for your situation. So for example, for a lawyer, you want to understand, like, do they have experience in the business that you're running? Have they done some of the services that you're asking for? For example, if you're asking to set up an LLC in your state, you want to make sure you have a lawyer that's licensed in your state and that understands the laws in your state, to support you. If you run a business online, do they have experience with that specific vertical so they understand like the online space? Can they do contract reviews for you? Understand what their fees are. Do they charge on a project basis or an hourly basis? Usually I like to pick somebody from a legal perspective that is experienced with it because normally they'll have like a project fee. Because they've done it enough and they know how much time it takes. So they can quote you a fee versus hourly, which can get very expensive and can be very expensive, especially for somebody who's starting out a business. So it's good to understand what their fees are. And then on top of that, like what it looks like if you need more time from them or anything like that. So you know that up front. For a tax professional, kind of similar things. You want to understand like what is their qualification? Like you have a certified accountant. It's very different than from somebody who just has a ID to be able to file your taxes. So you want to understand what their qualifications are. Again, if they have experience with your specific business, there are a lot of tax professionals that have a specialty. For example, some specialize in supporting small business owners. If you have any special circumstances with your business that you want to talk to them about, you want to ask them about that if they have experience with it. And again, understanding what their fees are and what that relationship looks like. How do they support you throughout the year? Do they have touch points with you, not just when it's filing time to help you plan? How do they help you maximize your tax returns so you're taking advantage of as many deductions and refunds and all that stuff that you need? And also when you're setting up your business, you want to talk to them and ask them what the financial implications, depending on what kind of business you're setting up. And I have some of these questions too that I've like got checklists on, so I can send you that too, Paige, if you want.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yes. And we can, if that sounds good, we can we can put it in the show notes so that everybody can sign up for an email list and download it if that sounds good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the experience that I had. I was really trying to set up my business solidly. I've been in business for myself for about 10 years. And so it was probably 6 or 7 years ago where I thought I need a team in place. I should find a lawyer that I really like. And so I think at the time I was pursuing some trademarks, and I think that's what really got me thinking about it. And I started with, I don't know, the traditional ways of looking for a lawyer. Like I went to a law firm and I did some interviews, and it just felt so like when I was starting this, I sat down with I think I was talking to associates at the time, and it was such a huge law firm and it was run by all men, and they didn't understand like the trademarks I was pursuing at the time was for a website that was focused on featuring female entrepreneurs, and they like didn't get it as a media outlet. Like they didn't understand it. They're like, I'm not sure where we'd file this trademark. And I just walked away feeling like, oh my God, that's going to cost me so much money for people that don't even understand what I'm doing. Like it didn't feel good. And I went to an event the same day after I took that meeting. And it was an event focused on networking with women. And I went and I said, you guys, I'm looking for a lawyer and I don't know what to do because I feel like all of these major law firms just don't get like what I'm trying to do. And I just don't feel right about it. And somebody said, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. She's an amazing lawyer. She works with women. She's here. And so that's what I did is I went over and I talked to her. And she is an amazing lawyer. She's been my lawyer now since then. And so let's talk about, because you work with women, and I just find that there's so much power in that, right? Like I've ended up finding a lawyer who understood what I'm doing with my business and is so supportive, and is really like locked in with what my priorities are and supporting, whatever we need to do. So can you talk a little bit about that, like supporting women, working with women?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I totally would agree with what you said. I think it's great to have like a network of women and like be able to work with other women professionals that really understand what you do from that perspective. Um, that's one of the reasons I got into finance and working with women too, because money affects us differently. For example, we talk about the pink tax and some of those basic necessities being more expensive for women. Healthcare is often more expensive for women, especially also when you're talking about planning for retirement. We tend to live longer. If we have partners, usually if you have any kind of like long-term healthcare or disability plans, that premium can tend to be more expensive for women because they tend to be the caregivers first and then live longer. So you have to keep that in mind when working with women. And I think the financial space is so male dominated. I really want us to be part of giving women a space to have a voice in finances, to feel like they have a community where they are comfortable with talking about money, to feel like they have a place at the table, and to feel like they have a support system that understands their needs and like can relate to their life experiences. Because I think women are so good about nurturing community, and when they have resources in their hands, I feel like everybody benefits, whether it's like their family or their community or their network. Yeah.
I think that's so true. What do you like to recommend for women when we're approaching our finances as women and we're thinking about building wealth in the long term? How do you like to speak to women about that?
Yeah, so I think it's just like being one of the things that I see, especially with career women, is be confident in like pursuing and asking for what you're worth. Don't feel like you're causing any issue or you're being too needy or it's not good to negotiate your salary or go after that next job that's going to increase your income. I think that's one of the biggest things because that income is the biggest things that can affect our long-term wealth growth. So really being confident and like asking for what you're worth, negotiating, finding a space where you can like build that muscle is huge. And don't be afraid to start. It's okay to make mistakes. There's no shame in making mistakes with money. And I think that's another stigma in the finance area where it's like a lot of the times the shame is kind of geared towards women a little bit. Like, it's frivolous to invest in a spa day or like buy a latte. I think the way women are taught is very different from men because men grow up kind of knowing that they have to be a provider. So they're like kind of get permission to talk about money and to ask for more money. Whereas women are more like they're not really taught that. So I want to just emphasize it's okay and I give you permission. Like you have a seat at that table. It's okay to like ask for what you want. Um, don't be afraid to take that next step to grow your wealth and build the kind of life that you desire. And there's no shame in spending on yourself and also enjoy your money in your life because it's not about deprivation, it's about expansion. It's about giving yourself opportunities and continuing to like create that life that you desire.
Okay, so this is my working theory about I know we haven't touched on manifestation, but my working theory on manifestation is that one of the reasons that it is such a powerful conversation in female-led spaces is because really manifesting is talking to women about making money in the way that men are just raised to expect money. Like I feel like men are raised to be confident around money, expect money. If they lose money, they just go, oh, we're just going to make it again. It doesn't matter, right? And that's basically like a lot of the principles of what manifestation teaches us. And I think that's why it's taken like become so powerful in conversation with women is like, it's just us like resetting our mindset to like kind of sort of where men are, right? And it's not an exact parallel, but like that's my working theory on manifestation and money. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh my God, I love that. You're so right that a lot of manifestation is like expecting to deserve everything that's coming to you, like knowing that you're worthy of all of that abundance. And yeah, we definitely are men with more of that confidence, but women, here to tell you, you're deserving of all of that too. Um, and the thing about, I love like the whole conversation between male and female energy. Female energy is like set up to receive. So, and that's part of like the whole manifestation practice is like you want to set your mind up so you're just there to receive, and that includes money. And I'm telling you, like women can do so much and expand so much with money. And there are even studies too that women are actually better investors than men. So I think it's more about just like, even if you're afraid, take that next step because all it is an opportunity to learn and continue to improve. And you can do like so many great things and like really build that life that you're dreaming of.
It's so true. And the power that you feel around, like, I've managed my money, I've grown my money. Once you start doing that and you start to see that, even if it's just a little bit, even if you just grow a little bit over like a year, once you see the results of that, you feel so dang powerful. And like, I feel like it like reaffirms like your confidence around your own ability to just make decisions, exist in the world, move forward, like be more bold and be more confident in like what you do in everything.
Yeah, I love that because it's like you take action. So you have a manifestation or desire, and then when you take that action, even if you're scared, you keep repeating that and you teach yourself and you show yourself that you can trust yourself. Like
Mm,
even if that you make a mistake, that you pick yourself back up, you learn from it and you keep going. And
mhm.
it does build that confidence because then you know like I can provide for myself. If I need to like do something else to increase my income, I can ask for what I'm worth, or I can figure out a way to make it. Um, and like one of the little things I love to work with my clients on is just like that one step you can take to see that you can grow your money. And like an example of that is like opening up a high yield savings account. Because like I think they're like on average like 3 to 5%
Mhm.
interest right now. So even if you're like putting $100 away, it's like a free coffee every month, and then it keeps expanding.
Yeah,
Versus like keeping that same $100 in a regular savings account and you get like 2 cents on it.
yeah.
And just seeing that is like, oh my God, I opened this for myself. It kind of felt weird because I wasn't familiar with this, and now I'm like seeing all this money grow. It can do wonders, just the little steps.
Yeah. See, that's the thing that gets me is I'm like, why wasn't I familiar when I was 18, 20, 22, or first starting out in the world? Why wasn't there like 20 people around me being like high yield savings? Like if you're going to start a savings, just do high yield, start there. Like that's one thing I wish I really had known, because the action of like, I got into the habit of like just putting aside money, but I was putting it in regular savings for years, just thinking like this
Mhm.
is the proper way to do it, and not understanding that like even just a high yield savings account would have been so powerful. And I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I think I didn't start using a high yield savings account until maybe my 30s.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and it's just like we don't talk about it. We don't get the education. Um, I think a lot of us are raised that money is kind of a taboo subject and you don't talk about it. You don't talk about how much you make. So there's not really a lot of that information readily available. That's what I love about like social media and the internet, that just makes information so much more available and gives us a space to talk about it more. Because I'm the same way. I wish I would have known about some of this stuff when I was younger. But
Mhm.
now we're here, and like that's one of my goals is to help women now and like even the younger generations be in a much better spot and like learn from the things that maybe we didn't know about initially too.
I love that. What would you say to somebody? What would be the number one mistake to avoid and the number one opportunity to take right now? Like if somebody's listening to this podcast, what's one thing to not do and what's one thing to absolutely do today once you're done listening?
Okay, I love that question. So what I would say, one thing to not do is to avoid your money.
Mm.
So have a, I like to say like a romantic relationship with your money. Like you want to be intimate with it. You want to know what's coming in, what's going out. So you know that like you've got everything set up to take care of yourself. So if you haven't looked at what you're spending or what your expenses are, you haven't really like done a budget, I would think that's the first step. And budgeting doesn't have to be like on a spreadsheet and doing all this boring manual updates. It can really be very simple.
Yeah.
So I would say like make sure you know your money and you're looking at it regularly. So don't avoid your budget. The thing I would say to start doing if you're not doing it yet is invest,
Mm.
honestly. Like I think that is one of the easiest ways to grow your money that's can be somewhat passive. And the biggest myth about investing, I think, is that it has to be difficult and you have to be like this expert and trading all these individual stocks. And it's really not that. It can be very simple and something you set up and really check once a year, even.
Mhm. Yeah, I am very big on like I just don't need to look. This is a long term this is a long
Yeah,
term plan. So maybe I just don't check it for a few months at a time and it's fine.
yep, absolutely.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I ask every guest at the end of the episode, what is your sliding doors moment? If you're listening and you haven't seen Sliding Doors, it is a movie from 1998 with Gwyneth Paltrow, highly recommend. But basically that what this question boils down to is what is one small move or one small thing that happened in your life or that you did in your life that at the time seemed small, but it really had a huge impact?
Yeah, I like this question. And something that's been on my mind lately is just the current environment with like a lot of layoffs in the tech industry and kind of like, a lot of people are going through the job search and interview process. And I think it's so important, like I mentioned earlier, for women to really ask for, a raise or like go after that salary bump. So this is where my answer comes from is I was in a job for probably like 7 years, which is like unheard of. Now you spend like 2 to 3 years in a job. And I wasn't me. I was like way underpaid in that job. And I was kind of afraid to like really go after something new. Um, but I knew I wanted to like make a move, so I started looking for jobs, and there was one that was in a completely different industry and needed like all kinds of experience that I didn't have. And so I was like, yeah, they're not gonna hire me. Like, I can't apply for this job. So I left it, but it was on my mind. And I decided the next day to apply for it. And I said, well, like, it doesn't, if I hear no, at least I applied. And then, like, I know at least I applied. I ended up getting that job and
Yeah.
increasing my income, I think, by like a few tens of thousands of dollars. It was pretty a pretty big bump.
Nice.
Um, and if I had never like applied for that job and then also asked for more than I was comfortable with, because when I did the salary negotiation, I like put out a number that I thought that they would never give me, and they did. Um, I wouldn't have moved because that was like the point that I had the opportunity to move from the East Coast to the West Coast. I wouldn't have made my first six-figure salary, and I wouldn't have like had all the opportunities that I have to continue to like I was able to like use that as a stepping stone to really grow my career in that industry and move many companies after that, and I got more comfortable with like negotiating my salary and everything. So like that small thing, which is like just like the fear that we talked about earlier, is like I was afraid that like if I apply for this, they're not going to hire me because I don't qualify. If I had let that stop
Mm.
me, I would have never moved. I may have not, I may have taken longer to make more income. So it's just that little thing. You question the fear and you still step and do it.
I love that because I really believe and this is like the third time this week that I've talked about this, but like, that is such a good example of why you should never be the one to say no to yourself. Like, let other
Yeah.
people say no to you because sometimes they're gonna say yes. So it is
Yeah.
worth it to like go for the thing, apply for the job, make the pitch. Why not? The worst thing that anybody says is no anyway. And like, they might just say yes. And I just think that's such a perfect example of like how powerful it can be to just go for the yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you said that. I heard somebody say the other day, like, if you say no to yourself, you're always going to hear no.
Exactly. That is so true because I tend to talk negatively to myself. And so if I only ever listened to myself in my mind, I would never end up going for anything. And the answer would always be no. And so recognizing that is so powerful and like trying to like move past it. Hearing in your head, no, don't do this, and then you doing it anyway is one of the most powerful skills you can cultivate, I think, as a business owner or just in general. Anybody, not even just a business owner, but no matter what you're doing, if you can find a way to like override the instinct to say no to yourself as you're saying no to yourself, like that, I feel like can be so life changing.
Yeah, I 1000% agree for sure.
I love that. So how do people find out more about you? What do you have going on right now? How do people work with you? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. That's the best place to see me and communicate with me. It is at Elizabeth_Michelle, but Michelle is spelled without the I. I also offer free one-on-one consults. So if you want to talk through anything, whether it's like money mindset or kind of where you're at financially, I'm happy to like brainstorm with you and provide some support. And if it makes sense for us to work together longer, we can talk about that too. But I love talking about money. I love helping women set up their budget. I have a free budget tool too that I can give you the link to if you want it. Yeah, so I'd love to talk more.
Amazing. And I'm going to put all of those links in the show notes so you can just go in and click, 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 and go visit Elizabeth. Highly recommend it. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today and talking to us. I really appreciate it. I think this episode was so important and I'm just so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.